You know, the thing is, have you ever heard somebody say, oh, girl, don't marry him? This is what happens. People that come into marriage counseling, I can write down the month, almost a lot of times to the date, they're going to have their biggest problem, and I can write down the problems that they're going to have. In fact, this one couple one time about 4 years ago said, we're not going to go through counseling. We love each other. And I said, okay, brother, I got an idea. I'm going to write down your biggest two problems, and within a year you're going to come to me. I'm going to give you this sheet of paper, and you watch me write it down. So I wrote it down, and I licked it, and I sealed it, and I put it in my drawer. He came back 9 months later, ready for divorce, and I handed him his paper, and he opened it up and said, oh, you really hear from God? And I'm like, no, I got common sense. And I said, I've been doing this a while. I knew that you were going to have problems because it was staring you right in the face, but you would not do marriage counseling. And I said, why not? And then they had problems, they had issues, but the Lord worked it out after that. You know, there's 3 things that all men want. Are you ready for this, men? All right. I hope so, because it's what you need to have. All men want this. They want a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. You know, a lot of guys say they don't like chick flicks. Come on. You like the end when the guy gets the girl. You know, you're sitting there like, man, that movie was all right. Man, come on. You love that movie because you're taking notes the whole time, typing it on your iPhone, you know, and then you try to use it next week, and she's like, man, I watched the movie with you. Don't try to be smooth. Wait about 3 months. So, you know, we all want like a battle to fight in life, and we always want a cause to have. And, you know, how come you don't fight battles in the church? How come you don't find the worst project in Texarkana and go out there and make a difference in it? How come you don't go to Haiti? How come you don't do things like that? How come you don't use the resources that you have at Church on the Rock or the home church that you go to and go out and make a difference? You know, that's what I love about the college campus. There's not a whole lot of people that when you talk to them about Jesus, love Jesus. And not a whole lot of people love me out there. But it's good. There's a battle to fight, and there's a reason to go out there. You know, everybody wants an adventure to live. They want to do something that excites them. They want to do something that really gets them going. And, you know, you can do that inside the church. You can find things to do. And the next one is a beauty to rescue. All guys want to be a hero to a beauty. And here's the problem with lust versus flesh. It says that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. When guys give in and have premarital sex, the flesh is weak. In the world's eyes, they say, how many girls you slept with? Man, oh, you're the man. No, you're weak because you're giving into the flesh. You're not giving into the spirit. You know, if you get in a situation, well, here's the thing. Never put yourself in the situation. I said this last week. If you didn't get the message last week, ladies, if you weren't here, we got DVDs. Get it on YouTube. It's Where's My Fairy Tale? It's a good word for ladies. But I never touched my wife before I got married. Ever. And I'm going to be 84, still kicking it, preaching and stuff, and I can still have the same testimony. What testimony are you going to have? You make that decision right now in your mind and in your heart what you're going to have. Because I can say this, because I knew what God had for us, and I didn't want to jeopardize it. And so I set myself apart. But all guys, they want a beauty to rescue. And it's the greatest feeling in the world to know that your wife loves you, submitted 100%. And the reason my wife is 100% submitted to the things that I do at our house is because of the life that I live, because I give her something to submit to. You know, I look at men in our church. You know, I look at Pastor Mike, and I look at Pastor John. I look at Robert Trumbull, Mike Thompson. Those are some manly men. And I look at Mr. Doty and some different people, and I look at their wives and the way they treat them, and I'm like, wow, their wives really love them and respect them. It's not, see, you can't demand respect. You earn respect. And it's just something that my wife even tells our kids whenever I say something. My wife will say, you know, girls, you need to respect your dad because he's a godly man. I mean, that melts my heart. I love that stuff. And this is sad right here, but every man's biggest fear in life is that he's going to be found out that he's an imposter, that he's not a real man. The guys are like, oh, Jesus, it's getting like clammy and cold in here. The thing is, you know, a lot of guys have struggles. If you have struggles, don't be ashamed. Go to somebody and get help. But there's a lot of times that guys, they're not stepping up. They're not being the men that God has called them to be. And they feel like an imposter. They feel like an imposer. And a lot of times they come in and they'll worship, but they got this sin in their life, and it's overtaken them. I had a guy one time. He told me, he said, you know what I was thinking about during worship? I said, what? He said, looking at pornography. And I said, did you know when you came to the altar that you were supposed to give that up? He goes, I know, I just knew that if I didn't come to church and I didn't come up to the front, that people, they might think I'm backslidden. And I'm like, hang on, let me figure this out. You were at the front, you're supposed to be worshiping, and you're thinking about pornography. Yes, you've backslidden. We prayed for him, and hopefully, he was set free. But men, they really feel, and they're scared that they may be found out to be an imposter. And here's the sad thing about this in life. Please catch this. This is strong. Posers in life only pick battles they can win. Catch this. Posers only pick battles that they can win. And they only adventures that they're sure they can handle. And they only go after the beauty that they know they can rescue. Don't settle for that. Young men, be the best and be all that God has called you to be. Then we're going to break this down. Have you ever seen the guy that comes to play basketball at the gym and they're all dressed up and they got all their cool Nike socks and the stuff for their knees and their sleeve for their arm and all this, because Allen Iverson did it 13 years ago. And they come in there and they're getting ready and they look up and there's some pretty good guys there. Back's hurting all of a sudden. Can't play this game. And they sit around and wait, and all of a sudden the good guys leave and they're like, praise the Lord. The back feels good. I can play a little bit now. And they wait till the best players leave. I knew some guys that had softball teams. They would call every tournament around to find out where the worst teams were at. That's where they would go play. They never wanted to be challenged. And it's like adventures to live. Man, me and some of my boys went canoeing one time. And whenever you'd see the rapids coming and you would hear the rapids, we got all excited. We started paddling faster. And after we went through about 3 or 4 rapids, we realized that one of our friends way in the back, his shirt was dry. And we're like, brother, did you not tump? He's like, no. I said, well, how come nothing splashed on you? He goes, well, I'm pretty good at it. So we paddled up a little bit further, and we stopped and pulled over to the side of one of these little small rapids. Dude got out of his canoe on the side and carried his canoe on the ground all the way around and got back in. And I'm like, it was this much of a drop. And the thing was, it's like that in our spiritual life. We don't want to live any adventures. We don't want to do anything hard. We don't want to go after anything. And this is how a lot of people are in life. And this is sad right here. There's a lot of guys that when they go after a wife or they go after a girl, they don't do anything that challenges them. I remember when I was single, there was about 3 or 4 girls in Texarkana that all the guys liked. And the thing was, nobody would ask them out because they were scared of them. Young ladies, if you're living for God and you're pretty, don't ever think this, well, why aren't guys asking me out? You intimidate them, and that's good. And the thing was, these girls, one time, one of them was my cousin, came up and said, well, how come nobody asked me out? And I'm like, because your spiritual walk scares them. Because what happens if they go out with you, you'll fall in love and you get married, and then you're living with this girl that's really living hardcore for Jesus, and they didn't want to live it, and then for the rest of their life, they're not the spiritual man of their house. Did y'all catch that? So a lot of guys will say, I just want a good girl, who loves Jesus. And all of a sudden, they go down the scale till they find somebody that won't intimidate them because they don't want to come up the scale. Does that make sense? Y'all catching that? When I saw Autumn, I was like, Jesus, I'm in for a challenge, but I'm up to it. And I promise you, she challenges me every day. And for me to remain the spiritual head of my house, it's hard. Because this woman wakes up in the morning, she's fasting, she's praying, she's turning the worship music, she's seeking the face of the Lord. And it's just like, I love that because she's going after God. That's the type of woman you want. I remember when I did pre-marriage counseling for Kyle and Susie, I remember I told Kyle, I said, son, you got your hands full with this girl. And I said, she is a fireball. But what kind of woman would you want raising your kids? Because one day you're going to have kids. If you don't explain it, I'll explain it to you on another session. But if you lower your standard, when you have kids, that's just going to be raising your children. You want to step up and raise a standard to have somebody that raised your kids. Like if one of my kids, like they said, Mom, I got a headache. We don't go for the aspirins. We go for the Holy Ghost. And we just start praying over our kids. We start quoting scriptures. And I'm like, well, how do you feel? They're like, well, better. That's the type of woman that you want. You want a wife sometimes that she'll wake up early in the morning and you'll hear her just praying, seeking after the Lord. Guys, but how do you get a woman like that? You be a man like that. because girls do not want to lower their standard. And I promise you, the saddest thing and the thing that makes me furious is when I hear young girls say, I just don't see any men like that. Pretty young women of God looking around saying, where's the men at? They're going to step up and be that. And I'm like, we're working on it. And you know, it's like I said, some people, they only pick women that will never challenge them. You don't want that in life. I promise you. And this is so sad. But I've heard ladies say, you know, that there's no men out there that are really fighting for my heart. There's no men who are fighting the challenges of life to be a great man of God. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that they're just not living adventures. And, you know, there's a lot of women out there that they have doubts in their mind. Am I really that pretty? Am I pretty? Am I lovable? Because no man is coming after me. Where's my knight in shining armor? And I remember one time that there was about 3 guys that liked my cousin, and they were like, hey, man, Pastor Joe, ask your cousin out for me. And I'm like, dude, be a man, do it. And all of a sudden, this one guy just joined our church and walked up and said, who's that? I said, that's my cousin. And he goes, I'm going to marry her. And I said, okay. He did. And those other guys were like, man, I knew I should have asked her out. I said, quit talking, get in the game, man up and do something about it.